Okay, who wants to listen to me today? Not your favorite night a guy has ever had. Can't call in sick though. We don't do that around here. All right, Tales from the Couch. 2 playoff games. We start in Boston. We get word, and we kind of knew this, that Embiid wasn't going to play in game 1. So it looked that way at the start. Some incredible numbers from this first half and maybe even the first quarter. I think Boston was actually 17 of 20 in the first quarter. So at the half, it's 66-63 Boston. Philly shooting 55% from the floor, 58% from 3. Boston 74% from the floor overall and 57% from 3. So now you start to play the game. How does this score happen if Boston is doing whatever they want on offense? Well, is it free throws? No, it isn't. In a Philly game? No, it's not that. Philadelphia didn't have any free throw attempts at the half. Their first free throw attempts were actually at 5:37 left in the third quarter. Boston took only 2. Philly, which you always look for, is, well, how did it happen? Well, they had 9 more field goal attempts in the first half. Boston, 6 more turnovers. Philly was +3 on the offensive rebounds. The Boston turnover stuff is still just weird at times. And I would say it's a Jaylen Brown thing. He was bringing the ball up at one point where nobody was even on, and he almost lost it. But he was great in the first quarter. Tatum was incredible. But on the other side, Harden came out. He took 30 shots last night. They needed it from him. He absolutely delivered. We're going to go through all of his defensive assignments and then the game-winning shot a little bit later. Melton was huge. There was actually great offensive balance throughout this game where Melton was making everything. Maxey ended up with 26. Harris had 18 points. Paul Reed played a ton of minutes. We'll get to his free throw makes late, a little bit later. He had 1 million boards. This was an incredible, gutty, tough win from Philadelphia where they looked like the tougher team mentally, even though I thought Boston at times looked like the more dominant team of the two. I don't think that would be much question to that one. But with no Embiid out there, where now everything will be different when he comes back, because there's defensive assignments here that I don't love for Philadelphia. Harris is not going to be able to hang with Tatum. PJ, we know how tough he is, but like Jalen should be able to get him. And he got him a few times on some overplays. Tatum got him on a switch and an overplay. And then, it's all easy after that because Paul Reed is not Embiid back there. I mean, no matter what you think about Embiid's deficiencies at times and defense, it's usually further away from the basket. Him just being there, it's not even the blocks. It's the field goal attempts. It's the intent. It's, do I actually want to go there at this guy right now? And there's very few people in the league that will want to do that against Embiid. So Boston blew a massive opportunity considering how easy the offense was for them for so much of this game. In the first interview with Maxey, they said it was about transition defense, and then Doc reiterated that at halftime. Maxey could have just been repeating something Doc had said in the timeout a little bit earlier. I did not see this as a transition defense problem for Philadelphia because transition can be one or two things, right? It can be just straight up turnovers, fast breaks, 2-on-1s, that kind of stuff. Guys not necessarily getting back. I mean, you're going to see players lose a couple guys. I don't care who you are in a playoff game. It's going to happen. But I just thought it was the point of attack, Boston breaking the paint, and once they were in the paint, it couldn't be easier for them. I thought that was the bigger issue, and I don't know if that's all that's solvable for Philadelphia without Embiid in there. I mean, effort is a key adjustment. You can see it even in game 2 of Denver and Phoenix, which we'll get to a little bit later here. Effort is the greatest adjustment, right? But in this one, it was just so easy for Boston the whole time, yet the score doesn't reflect it. Boston did get up 12 when it was 62-50. But Philly went on a 10-0 run after that. And I cannot emphasize this enough. D'Anthony Melton, every time as an outlet, wide open threes and hitting them, because primarily your concern if you're Boston on defense was trying to figure out a way to contain Harden. And despite Harden going for 45 points where he was awesome, like I went through it, of the 30 attempts, I think only 6 were uncontested. His shot making last night was absurd, like prime Harden stuff. He doesn't move the same ways. Too often we kind of like, oh, I don't think he moves the same way. Oh, could it be because it's 8 years ago? Could that be a clue as to why he's moving a little slower than before? And what Harden wasn't able to do against the Nets in that first round, you're like, well, that can't, like, even at him diminished, you can't possibly be that bad at the rim again. And it really wasn't rim stuff. He was he was just great, man. He was great. All right, so at 72-72, I wrote down the weird vibes alert because I was like, all right, this game is like a game now. And whatever Boston was getting early where you felt like, okay, 74% isn't sustainable, but this is easier for them. They should probably be able to find a way to pull away as the defense tightens up on both sides. But that's not really what happened. Now, I thought it was really interesting, and obviously I was at home kind of chuckling a bit because in the same like possession, the same little conversation, Reggie Miller was like, I love James Harden's patience because his patience is how he plays. He figures out what he wants to do, dribbles. And obviously it's on record how I feel about that because I do think it becomes easier to defend over the course of a playoff series. But during that happening, there was a stretch where Philly actually wasn't scoring, right? Which is going to happen in any game. No matter what you're doing, there's going to be like this 3.5 minute stretch. Like, okay, this team hasn't scored any points. But what I thought was good from that, even though then Reggie, after it didn't work for a little while, was like, I think they need to go quicker. I thought Harden slowing the game down for himself, which is his preference, obviously, I thought it slowed the entire game down. I think Boston kind of fell into that somewhat offensively, even though the defensive problem is the bigger issue for the Celtics team during the playoffs. So Boston makes it 111-107 on a smart and one. It was a baseline cut. Harden lost him. And I was like, okay, here we go. There's the bad defensive possession there. Look at all these points. Smart gets it to 4. Boston maybe still figures out a way to pull this game off. Harden miss. Tatum misses a wide open 3 at 2:28. And then it's a bit of a miss fest here. The slowing down thing was real. Okay. Then there's the Maxey and 1 play. Now, it looked like 2 officials had it different, a block or a charge. That's going to make it 111-110 if it's an and 1 and Maxey makes the free throw. If it's a charge, it's Maxey's 6th foul. That's the game for the most part. That's one of a handful of things, but you could sit there and say, okay, this likely is the game here, depending on how this call goes. Now, Smart actually was outside of the restricted area. Another thing to remember too, because I saw somebody, the only reason I know this is that somebody explained it to me once. If a player's heels are over the line but raised off of the line, that's still considered a violation. It's supposed to be considered this kind of upward thing, like a plane, where you can't actually just raise your heels off the line. And I've seen some people, look, I messed up the walking the dog thing last year while the broadcaster did it. A ref called it this year. So I'm not saying I'm a hero. I'm just telling you that's something to look out for because you'll see it every now and then. Now, this is a Philly-Boston thing. If you're a Philly guy, you're like, of course it was a block. He was still moving. If you're a Boston guy, you're like, hey, he was outside of the restricted area. I've seen worse remain a charge. But the call I believe in is that that's a block because you're still moving. Me and all my charge rants, I believe that should be a block. I'm fine with it. I thought it was the right call, and it was a huge swing there. So the Maxey and 1 makes it 111-110 Boston. Boston, 2 offensive rebounds in the same possession. Horford the layup off of Smart. Now, this is part of the Smart Derek White decision late where I think it's Smart's playmaking. The defensive part was Smart. Kind of feels a little bit more night to night because Derek White is so good defensively this year. I voted him for one of the all defensive teams this season. So maybe it's a strength thing against Harden, but I also think it might be the playmaking that we saw against the double team with Tatum against Atlanta, where Smart made the great play to Horford. So that might be a little bit more of it. So at that point, offensive rebounds, they're up 113, 110. Paul Reed gets fouled. He's 75% from the free throw line this season. I still did not expect him to make both of these free throws. Boston's still up 1. It's 113, 112. And this possession should haunt Celtics fans. Boston's been to the NBA Finals. The battles with Miami last year where they were the better team and yet it still almost didn't go their way. The battle with Giannis in Milwaukee, like the MVP Giannis that we all loved, right? Not the guy that's getting dumped on by everybody now. But again, I'm being dramatic about that. So this is the whole point. This is all those scars, right? All these scars are supposed to add up to you looking more comfortable. And nobody on Boston wanted to take the shot here. Nobody wanted the ball. The whistles started, like the refs were whistle happy at this point. if anything, just something simple with Tatum or Brown, or Tatum is the decoy to get it back to Brown. Although I don't know, I want Brown taking the free throws, but something getting one of those two guys, hell, even Brogdon going downhill, knowing the refs were a little whistle happy. Smart got one where he just yard sailed himself into a defensive player at the rim, I think against Reed. And I couldn't even believe he got the call and they gave it to him there. So to not take a shot, not have anybody look comfortable with the basketball in their hands, and Brogdon, of all people, who just usually just like, hey, that guy knows what's going on. With a second left, he's looking to make a pass where even if the pass had been delivered to anybody, it was going to be a shot clock violation. So there's no way, like, didn't make any sense. And then it goes Freddie Brown style. He throws it right to Maxey. Maxey takes the ball, hits the layup. Everybody stopped. Nobody was catching Maxey anyway. Maxey didn't travel, by the way, either. And you're going, well, what the hell happened there? And by the way, I love that that's not a shot clock violation. It shouldn't ever be. The defense should be rewarded for getting the team to screw it up. And too many times you'll see the whistle go like, oh, shot clock. They should never interfere with the defense getting a great look off of that shot clock violation. Like, it shouldn't stop play. So I was happy that happened because I just think it's the right thing to see in basketball. So now Philly's actually up, which is kind of funny because I think people are going to forget Boston actually took the lead back here. Tatum gets downhill, gets his free throws, makes both of them, 26 seconds left. Now, on this last play at 26 seconds, after Doc had made defensive substitutions, hey, we're going to give Doc Rivers some credit here. He puts Niang and Melton back in. All right, because he wanted Niang and Maxey in. So Melton came out on that substitution. So it's Harris, it's PJ, it's Niang, and it's Maxey. Now, we understand why Doc's doing this because he wants all this spacing if Horford can get the switch that he wants. He gets the switch on Horford. Yes, I do not like how easy NBA teams allow themselves to get into a disadvantaged switch. It happens all the time. I still can't believe how bad the Warriors were with it in 2016 against the Cavs. They just invited themselves into these horrible disadvantaged switches. And as much as I can say that, there are times, too, where you'll see a team sort of fight a switch, or a guy looks like he's going to switch, and he comes back to recover, and the NBA players are so good, they burn you the whole time. And certainly Harden is capable of doing that with his passing and his vision, right? And Harden already knows all the stuff that you're trying to do here. But Horford gave a great contest on that shot. I watched all 30 shot attempts from Harden this morning, specifically that one. That's a great contest. It is. Now, granted, you're dealing with the Harden part of this where he's going to look to land into your feet, so you're worried about the free throws. You know, Harden's misses last night, most of the misses were him being more concerned with trying to get free throws than it was him making the shot, which I think is something that's happened to him more and more. But he shot it well enough this season after declining the last couple of years from three. So you can't really get on him for it. But, you know, as much as, Harden got smoked or Harden smoked Horford, I should say, go back and look at that three. And even Horford said he went earlier than I thought, and he did. Like, the shot is up with 7 seconds left on the shot clock. And Harden's still going to angle himself looking for a foul on it, but he shot it much more pure than some of the stuff he'll do earlier in a game where he's just hoping to get the free throws. So I didn't really think I don't like the switch. And then the other part is you send two. I like the idea of sending a second guy, but you could possibly get burned with that one. PJ sets the screen. He runs right down to the baseline to get out of it. It was kind of crowded on that right side, so maybe you could have set a second defender over there, and there was enough crowding on the right side that if Harden passed out to one of those guys, somebody could have made up the ground. And Harris is on Tatum, completely stuck in the left quarter away from everything. So, sure, you can rewatch that a million times if you want and come up with different things they could have done. I'm not even saying you're necessarily wrong. I just think at times it could be a little unfair, especially when Horford got a really good contest on that shot. Now, going through the 30 shot attempts from Harden, now, field goal attempts versus defender does not always tell the truth on defensive assignments here. White had 3, 6 against Smart, 6 against Brogdon. As soon as Grant Williams came in, he switched on him twice. I thought Grant gave a really good contest on the first one. The second one, he tried to body up and lost him immediately on the dribble. Rob Williams, 2 contests. Tatum only 2. Horford 5, Jalen Williams 3, and then Hauser, which was my favorite one because Harden jumped about 3 feet forward trying to get the foul on that one and then fell down. I would have posted that if they had lost, perhaps. Of the 30, again, I think it's 6 uncontested, which speaks to how brilliant Harden was last night, right? It wasn't free throws. It wasn't an egregious amount of shots that were inefficient. It was a guy finding a way in a playoff game, which has not been on the resume, despite some of the overall numbers, where he was in complete control and looked comfortable in moments when I've seen him look uncomfortable in the past. I mean, for him to hit that many shots where my tracking is 24 of the 30 to be contested, including the last one. Brilliant game from him. Celtics defense, let's talk about it. They could depend on it last season. The playoffs so far right now, I don't know what's going on. They were second in defense last year in the playoffs behind only Milwaukee. The offense was ninth. The offense was the problem against Golden State. They looked uncertain. They didn't know necessarily like who was their closer. Tatum didn't drive the contact as well. It was a big adjustment this offseason. It's made him even better. But at this point right now, Boston is 12th out of 16 teams in the playoffs on defense. 7 games, sure. Small sample, sure. But teams 13 through 16 are all home right now. The last 5 games, Boston's given up 123 points per 100 possession. In the finals last year against Golden State, they gave up 110 points per 100 possessions. Against Golden State in the finals. Against Atlanta, and now the last 4 against Atlanta and the first game against Philly, they're at 123. Yes, offense, rising tides, all that kind of stuff. The fourth quarter offense, Philadelphia through the playoffs. I don't even know what to make of it because the Brooklyn part of it was, I don't know that it was a huge challenge, but Philly did what they needed to do despite me going, I worry about them late. Some of the predictability. I know the numbers are better than I maybe give them credit for. Philly's third in fourth quarter offense of the playoffs. Boston is 7th. And Doc Rivers wins the Doc Rivers rule game. And Horford talked about it. He talked about it after and said, I think once we knew Embiid was out, we lightened up a little bit. Wait, don't lighten up. Fix the defense. Maybe. But that was, as we talked about with Phoenix and Denver in game 1, alarming to see Boston at home in that spot look like the less tougher team. Denver, all Jokic, man. What a game. 39 points, 16 boards, 5 assists, 9 field goal attempts in the first quarter. He knew the approach, what he was going to have to do. Like, it was pretty clear we're going to see this rare Jokic game where he was going to actually initiate a lot of the offense. 30 shots in the game for him as well. That's a season high, I believe. Fourth quarter, it's 73-70 Phoenix. Phoenix somehow is still leading this game. Well, that's because after Jokic, nobody was doing anything from Denver. Let's run through some of the numbers. Neither team could hit from 3. Phoenix was 6 of 22 for 27%. Denver 4 of 21, 19% at this time when I wrote it down, start of the fourth. Murray, 1 of 10. 1 of 10 with 4 points, 0 of 6 from 3 at this point. Phoenix earlier in the game had led 59-51. And maybe you sense the tone in my voice here as I address this. Why do I go back at 59-51? That's because 5:04 left of the third quarter. Chris Paul left the game with a groin injury. Say what you want about Chris Paul. At times, the playoffs, again, he's a diminished player. He has been in the regular season. This is not breaking news. He was 1 of 7 to start the game, but he made 3 straight off that drop against Jokic that I talked about with Bill after game 1, being like, look, it's not like you're just going to have Durant, Booker watch everything you're doing. At times, even against the Clippers in game 1 when they blew that game, I was like, wait, what are you going to do? Just run Ayton, Chris Paul stuff all the time with 2 Hall of Famers watching the whole time? Like, that doesn't make a ton of sense. However, I thought having none of it against Jokic, the thing that you're supposed to exploit against Jokic being out there and some of that drop stuff, and how Denver at times, even in the regular season, I'm like, man, they asked that guy to cover a lot of ground and blitz pretty far out at some point guards, depending on what they're doing. You might want to look at it because even if Chris Paul's not taking that shot every time, it should open up some things. Paul made 3 in a row, and it felt like he was starting to feel things out. And again, it just makes things easier for everybody else. Then he leaves with the groin injury. I have no idea. Make fun of me all you want. I guess I deserve it. It feels a little mean-spirited. I did get a text from Big Cat last night. He tweeted about it too. He was trying to pretend he was being nice, but we know that he's evil. Kyle and I know that he's evil deep down. So we're going to leave that one alone. Okay. So Jokic comes back in, at 9:20. So just under 3 minutes of not playing. Now let's go backwards, right? Phoenix was up 73-70 to start. Nobody's making any shots. Supporting cast isn't helping out Denver. I don't love everything I'm seeing from Phoenix, but I'm loving the defensive intensity. I thought Ayton was better. It's not perfect. Some of the funny things that I was thinking about with Horford and people say, oh, he got cooked by Harden at the end. I'm like, man, that was a pretty good contest. Now there were some other drops where Horford was against the screen against Harden, where I thought he was a little too deep. And then it's like, man, sometimes we ask these centers to get out and get into somebody's jersey, and it's just not realistic that that's going to happen. And it happens with Ayton in game one. I feel like it happened a little less in game two. And then the other stuff for Ayton, like one-on-one against Jokic, good luck, man. Good luck. More moves than a can of worms. I heard an old guy say that on a broadcast one time. There's just not much you're going to be able to do with that. So as I keep getting to this 73-70 thing, that means that Phoenix was up 3. That means in the non-Jokic minutes, they should be able to go on some kind of run. That's not what happened. He sat almost 3 minutes, as we said. Phoenix lost those minutes 3-0. They didn't score. Phoenix was 0 of 9 to start the fourth quarter. They were 7 of 25 overall in the fourth. After the Chris Paul injury, Durant went 4 of 12. We'll get to him. Okay. So Jokic misses this time. And now you were up 3 and now it's tied. Okay. Well, maybe it was only, 240, but this is a problem. This continues to be a problem. Look at these non-Jokic minutes so far in these first 2 games. Jokic, the sub pattern is not in stone with Denver and how they want to do it, but it's kind of like plays most of the first quarter, maybe all the first quarter. Jokic plays, I think, the whole first quarter last night. Right. He sits at the start of the second quarter. It's 21-18 Phoenix. He comes back in at 7:51. Denver wins the non-Jokic minutes 8-3. So Phoenix actually blows another lead there. Game one, Jokic sits at 1:37 of the first quarter. It's 28-27 Denver. Jokic comes back in, and they actually sat him a little longer in this game. Denver won that stretch by 7 points. In the third quarter of game one, Jokic sits 39 seconds left of the third quarter. It's 93-79. Comes back into the fourth at 7:40. Interesting stuff that Malone's doing there. Again, it depends on the game, the extra break, and that kind of thing. He brings him back earlier last night than he did in game one. Granted, they had more of a lead, so that's part of it as well. Comes out up 14, comes back in up 12. So they only lost 2 points. So there's one sub pattern in this entire series where it was a negative for Denver and it's only been -2. That can't happen. The other thing that can't happen is KD in this. He needs to be impossible. He needs to be impossible to deal with. And he's not that right now. He had a 1 foot step back from the right baseline. I was like, he actually needs to hit those absurd shots. I have no issue with Booker. The rest of the bench is a mess. We knew that. The 3-point shooting, so many wide open looks from this team. I do think there's a weird hey, what did we do wrong? Let's be better next game, where everybody was on him for not taking enough threes, so they came out and take a ton of threes. Booker was 4 of 8 from 3. The rest of the team was 2 of 23. Campaign had a couple, hey, look at me threes, which I love. But now Campaign is a necessity because of the Chris Paul injury. That's clearly, I've never heard older guys hurt their groin and be like, yeah, it was only like a day. I'm good. Unless you're Lane Johnson. I don't know if that's going to be a quick recovery, if at all. So Durant, despite the defense and the boards, not enough there. I agree with Bill on Sunday. He goes, they still have a lot of that new guy vibe to them. They do. They don't really seem to know what they want to do. They definitely don't know what their rotations are. They keep trying different stuff that doesn't feel like coaching adjustments. It feels like being lost. And the only thing you're banking on here for Phoenix, because if Chris Paul doesn't come back, again, say what you want, not having him in an already pretty depleted rotation is a huge, huge problem. If you're Phoenix, you're banking on that Durant guy. You're banking on 3 days off, and that Denver is 19-22 on the road this season. That's Tales from the Couch.